is CGTN, China Global Television Network. Live from London, this is The World Today.
Hello, I'm Jamie Owen. Welcome to the program. Our top stories: Ukraine calls for the United Nations and the Red Cross to investigate the killing of 50 prisoners of war. We'll be live in Lviv. Our other headlines: thousands of supporters of the Shia cleric Muqtada al-Sadr stormed the Iraqi parliament for the second time in a week. The death toll in Kentucky is expected to rise following torrential rain and flooding that's now killed at least 25 people. And harnessing the wind and the tide, the sailing team picking up the trophy after winning the Clipper Round the World yacht race. Ukraine's president says an attack that killed more than 50 Ukrainian prisoners of war is a deliberate war crime and deliberate mass murder. Volodymyr Zelensky is calling for the United Nations and the Red Cross to investigate the incident at a prison in Russian-occupied Donetsk. But Moscow says Ukraine is to blame and has accused Kyiv of targeting the facility with US-made rockets. Well, the Associated Press correspondent Sam Mednick is in the Ukrainian city of Lviv. Sam, so both sides blaming each other for this attack.
Russia and Ukraine are both pointing the finger at each other for the attack on this prison in the separatist eastern region of Ukraine that killed dozens of Ukrainian prisoners of war and injured many of them. Both sides are alleging that the attack was premeditated and that the intent was to silence the prisoners and destroy evidence, which could have included atrocities. In a video yesterday, President Zelensky said that this was deliberate war crimes by Russia and deliberate mass murder. Today, Associated Press reporters saw in the capital, Kyiv, relatives of prisoners of war gathering and protesting and calling on the United States to label Russia a terrorist state. Moscow has said that it sent investigators to the site of the attack to investigate it. Now, it's hard to verify the information, but the Washington-based think tank, the Institute for the Study of War, has said that given the available information that there is, the available visual evidence, that the claims by Ukraine are more credible than that of Russia. The International Committee of the Red Cross has requested access to the prison in order to assess the conditions of the people there at the time of the attack. Now, these prisoners were largely from the town of Mariupol. These fighters were defending the Azovstal steel plant. This is where a lot of people sheltered in for weeks and months at a time while Mariupol was being decimated. In May, more than 2,400 fighters surrendered. Some of them have returned to Ukraine in prisoner exchanges. However, the whereabouts of many are unknown, and some of their families say they have no idea where they are.
What is the latest on Ukraine's counteroffensive in Kherson?
Ukraine is continuing this counteroffensive in the southern region of Kherson. Ukraine's army said that on Friday it destroyed nearly 36 pieces of Russian military equipment. This includes tanks and artillery, as well as they struck munitions depots. Ukraine's army also said that Russia is trying to dig in and using a lot of drones to gather reconnaissance. But analysts say that despite that, Russia has likely lost ground in Kherson, and that is because Ukraine continues striking these key infrastructure objects, like bridges, which Russia greatly needs to bring military personnel and supplies into the regions that it occupies. Now, amid all of this are increasing reports that Russia is going to annex more areas of Ukraine and hold what the United States has called sham elections in the areas that it occupies. In a press conference yesterday, United States Secretary of State Antony Blinken said he spoke to Russia's top diplomat Sergei Lavrov and told him that if Russia annexes these areas, it's not going to be acceptable and there will be high risk, high consequences for Russia. Some analysts say that Russians are already calling Kherson southern Russia, and I spoke to someone in the city of Kherson today who did not want to be named for security reasons. She said that since the increased counteroffensive, Russian soldiers are doing more investigations and having more roadblocks, but that the people there are willing to suffer while they wait to be liberated.
Sam, thank you for that. That's Sam Mednick from the Associated Press in Lviv. Well, Ukraine is awaiting United Nations approval to restart grain exports from its Black Sea ports. The first ships are loaded, and President Zelensky said transportation could start shortly. Ukraine's ports have been closed since the start of Russia's invasion in February, and the blockade has led to fears of global food shortages and price rises. CGTN's correspondent Stephanie Fried reports now from the port city of Odessa.
Around 600 people line up at the Welcome Home Humanitarian Center in downtown Odessa every day. They've fled the conflict-riddled cities of Mariupol, Kharkiv, Kherson, and the Donbas region. Here, they get food, medicine, clothing, diapers, and hygiene-related products donated by private individuals and major international organizations. Supplies are plentiful.
For now, people aren't worried about what will be tomorrow. They're just trying to fix today's problems.
But that could change if exports don't start moving to global consumers.
During 2021, 160 million tons of cargo turnover through whole Ukrainian ports. It's a very important, let's say, sector of economic for Ukraine.
Ukraine exported nearly $70 billion worth of goods. Stalled shipping combined with possible Russian military advances could ricochet, leading to significant shortages in Ukraine.
I understand that anything actually can happen. I didn't thought that war is possible, but well, here we are, and well, anything can happen.
Speaking from a major Odessa region shipping hub on Friday, Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky said Ukraine is ready to move goods. All that's needed now is a green light. As parties to the export deal signed in Istanbul iron out logistics, the clock is ticking. The deal is active for 120 days. According to UN officials, it may be renewable. Stephanie Fried, CGTN, Odessa, Ukraine.
Russia's Gazprom has stopped supplying Latvia with gas due to an alleged contractual breach. The energy giant hasn't specified what the violation relates to, but it comes a day after Latvian energy company Latvijas Gaz says it was paying in euros rather than in rubles for gas from Russia. Moscow has already cut off supplies to Poland, Bulgaria, Finland, Netherlands and Denmark. Thousands of supporters of the Shia cleric Muqtada al-Sadr have stormed Baghdad's fortified government green zone and entered the parliament building for the second time in a week. At least 125 people have been injured, including protesters and police. The Associated Press correspondent Laith Al-Haidar is in Baghdad. Laith, we've been watching pictures of the protesters inside the parliament building showing largely peaceful protests. What is it that the protesters are calling for?
Well, they're chanting for the life of their leader, Muqtada al-Sadr, as he's the leader of reforms, as they used to call him. And they're having like a good time, actually, according to the image we saw from the media. They are parading, chanting, making like a little party with some selfies. The number of people inside still not being calculated. We don't know because the flow of people are still going on in and out the green zone. People still coming from the bridge behind me and going inside the green zone. No statistics till now to mention the number of those people. Still, we don't know if they are going to stay or going to leave. The leaders of Sadr bloc haven't announced anything yet. They are waiting for the framework coordination to come up with a real positive stand for their demands. So people will still there. We still don't know. We have no idea of the logistics for these big number of people inside the parliament building. How they're gonna, get fed or have water or nothing like that. But maybe those people are, according to what we saw, they are well organized and have a good discipline to their leaders. Maybe they took everything under consideration.
Thank you for that. Laith Al-Haider, our correspondent in Baghdad. You're watching CGTN. Still ahead, the sailing team celebrating winning the grueling Clipper round the world yacht race. We'll be joining them at Journey's End in London.
What I show of China is what I really experience in China, and it's very different to what people in the West experience in China.
70 years ago, a small group of British businessmen travelled to China to unlock opportunities between the two countries. They became known as the icebreakers.
I think it's fantastically important to educate British people about Chinese history and culture.
We have sown seeds which in China have grown to very big trees.
The values of horsemanship, respect, responsibility, compassion can be extended to all relationships.
My name is Max. I'm a food blogger. I grew up in China. Now I live in the UK.
We deserve respect, and the Chinese people with their own culture also deserve respect.
For cross-cultural understanding, I think food is a really good place to start. I hope to spread awareness of all the different cultures within China. I think there's a lot to share.
To increase understanding between cultures, I think time and patience is important. But the most important thing is responsibility.
Meet the bridge builders, the individuals who dare to think beyond the horizon and open up our world. Soaring energy prices, surging inflation, strained supply chains. As costs spiral and goods run short, people are feeling the heat. Join us for a special new series, Crunch Time, starting August the 1st, here on CGTN.
Hello, welcome back. A reminder of our top stories. Ukraine calls for the United Nations and the Red Cross to investigate the killing of 50 prisoners of war. Our other headlines: thousands of supporters of the Shia cleric Muqtada al-Sadr stormed the Iraqi parliament for the second time in a week. The governor of the U.S. state of Kentucky says search and rescue efforts are continuing following torrential rain and flooding that's now killed at least 25 people. The death toll as floodwater recedes and search teams find more bodies. Rescuers are using helicopters and boats to locate people in submerged homes and cars in the Appalachian coal mining region. Most of Jackson, a town of more than 2,000 people, is now underwater. Well, Professor William C. Hanneberg is director of the Kentucky Geological Survey. I asked him to give a sense of the devastation there.
The extent covers several counties in eastern Kentucky. Each county is about 1,000 square kilometers. So overall, we're talking about a geographic area that might cover 10,000 square kilometers, although the flooding itself, of course, is confined just to the narrow river valleys and doesn't cover that entire large area. But it is a large portion of eastern Kentucky.
And for an international audience, can you explain how unprecedented such extreme weather events are for Kentucky and this region specifically?
Yeah, we're hearing it. It's certainly unprecedented in the lives of the people that live there. I think over the coming days and weeks, as we start getting in all the data from the different rain gauges and river gauges in the region, we're going to find in a lot of cases that these are rainfall and flooding levels that have never been recorded before in records going back at least a century. One of the figures I saw was they received greater than 25 centimeters of rain in just a few hours, which is almost unbelievable to imagine what that must have been. And by comparison, the average annual rainfall there is probably 110 or 120 centimeters, and they received over 25 in just a few hours.
Can you give us an idea of the communities involved? Are they socially and financially robust? Will they be able to withstand what's happened and rebuild?
That's one of the critical issues in terms of looking at the risk as we look at the natural hazard, of course, but also the vulnerability and the community resilience. And this is an area that was never a rich area. It was a mountainous area. It saw its peak of prosperity because of coal mining, but coal mining has been going down since about 2000, and there's very little of it going on now. So in a lot of ways, it's a very economically stressed area, and they have few resources there. The county governments are very small. The state, of course, is President Biden has declared it a disaster area, but the towns themselves are small rural towns. Maybe a couple thousand people at most, maybe in some of these places just a few hundred people. So they're small towns without a lot of resources. And it's also a very rugged mountainous area. You might, to get to a point 10 kilometers away, you might actually have to drive 20 or 30 kilometers on the winding mountain roads. So it's very difficult to access physically in a lot of cases as well.
Did tragic events like this change the debate there around climate change, or do folks just shrug their shoulders and say, well, this is just one of those things?
I think they are. It's tragic that it takes something like this, maybe for the conversation to be advanced. My area of specialty is geologic hazards, and unfortunately we see that in a lot of areas, earthquakes, landslides, and everything else. So I think it will continue to shift the conversation. We had some extremely severe tornadoes in the western part of Kentucky last December. About a year and a half ago, we had a really significant flooding event, maybe not quite as severe as this one, that flooded an entire town, not too far from where today's or this week's flooding has been going on. So I think as we see those more often and they impact people on the ground, the conversation may change, but we still have a lot of people, and especially a lot of our political leaders, are denying that this is going on, or in some cases, people have gone as far to try to say that the global warming is good because plants like carbon dioxide, and we actually need more carbon dioxide, which is, I think, a very dangerous statement to make.
Staying in the United States, the mayor of Washington has asked for the National Guard to be mobilized to help process thousands of undocumented migrants being bussed into the district from Texas and Arizona. Our correspondent Tony Waterman reports now from Texas, from where many of those buses are leaving.
Texas Republican Governor Greg Abbott hatched this idea of busing migrants up to Washington earlier this year, frustrated by what he sees as President Biden's failure to secure the border. The first bus left in mid-April, dropping migrants off near the U.S. Capitol, something the White House slammed as a publicity stunt. And since then, the governor's office says more than 6,000 people have been transported on more than 150 buses. More than 1,000 others have arrived from Arizona. In D.C., Mayor Bowser saying that the situation is now at a tipping point. In letters sent to the Department of Defense and the White House, she says that the city needs help processing and housing all of these people, work that so far has primarily been done by NGOs, but these groups, which are notoriously underfunded, are overwhelmed now as well. So Bowser is asking for National Guard troops to be activated indefinitely to help handle the situation. It's unclear if the White House will answer her calls for help, but one thing she is definitely not getting is sympathy from Governor Abbott. In a tweet, he said D.C. is experiencing a fraction of the disastrous impact the border crisis has caused Texas, and suggested Bowser demand President Biden do his job. Now, attempted border crossings have hit a record high this fiscal year. More than 1.74 million people have been stopped along the southern border, which is the most since 1960. And with numbers only climbing higher, Bowser says she expects this crisis to escalate. At this point, it's unclear what sort of help, if any, she is going to be offered. Tony Waterman, CGTN, Austin, Texas.
The United States House Speaker Nancy Pelosi has begun her tour of Asia with a yet-to-be-confirmed visit to Taiwan, which is inflaming United States-China diplomatic relations. Beijing has warned of repercussions should Pelosi visit Taipei. Pelosi declined to comment on the possibility of visiting the island, citing security concerns. 5,000 train drivers across almost a quarter of Britain's railway network are on strike in a protest over pay. Almost all services run by 7 train operators have been cancelled. The 24-hour strike has been organised by the drivers' union ASLEF and follows similar action by 2 other unions on Wednesday. Spain and Brazil have both reported their first deaths from monkeypox. They're thought to be the first deaths outside Africa in this outbreak. The deaths come less than a week after the World Health Organization declared a global health emergency, its highest level of alert. And in the United States, frustration is growing over the government's approach to this outbreak. America has recorded more cases of this virus than any other country. Our correspondent William Denslow reports now from New York, where the governor there has declared a state of emergency.
A nation at risk of sleepwalking into a public health emergency. Protesters here in New York are urging elected officials to wake up.
What we're demanding is, better meaningful outreach, effective, urgency around treatment, testing, and vaccine deployment. And, that should have been done yesterday.
These demonstrators are asking lawmakers to cut red tape to make monkeypox treatments like T-pox more accessible. The federal government has distributed around 300,000 vaccines, and there are growing calls for more shots to become available. Those here are frustrated by the government's response to the monkeypox outbreak, but officials say more help is on the way. 760,000 additional doses of the monkeypox vaccine have been sent to the US. And Governor Kathy Hochul says she's making sure New York gets its fair share. Officials say they're working to ramp up testing. But health experts believe getting more vaccines from Denmark, where it's produced, won't be straightforward.
This vaccine, which was developed after the eradication of smallpox, is made by a company that doesn't have a large manufacturing capacity, and there simply hasn't been enough supply of this vaccine.
Monkeypox is transmitted through close contact and can impact anyone. In the US, it's been spreading predominantly among men that have sex with men. Sweet Bar caters predominantly to the LGBTQ+ community. It's seen a drop in customers over recent weeks as monkeypox cases have risen in the city.
The government should help the minority businesses that are struggling. I'm not saying that they should go all out and just, give us all the money and just say, help us a little bit, that's all.
The city has provided monkeypox information pamphlets for businesses like this to distribute, but many are tired of waiting for authorities to take bolder action. William Denslow, CGTN, New York.
The Qingdao sailing team, named after the Chinese city, has been celebrating winning the 2019-2020 Clipper race in London's Royal Docks. Races and celebrations were interrupted by the pandemic. The team won 5 out of the 8 races in the round-the-world endurance yacht race, and our correspondent Nuid Jabarkal reports.
Hundreds of people here behind welcoming these sailors after what's been a grueling 11 months of racing, not just individually but collectively as a team as well. The people they're here to see, well, if my colleague just swings around here, you can see Qingdao. That's the team from China that won this event out of the 11 taking part. There's one from Vietnam behind it and another one from Uruguay on the other side. And this was supposed to be 11 months of racing, over 40,000 nautical miles. But what makes this event so special is, unlike similar races around the world, anyone can take part, even if you've never stepped foot on a boat or a yacht before. But it was disrupted. It started in September 2019 here in London before they set off for the 8 legs around the world. They didn't manage to complete all of those. 3 were planned in China. Aside from the team from Qingdao, 2 others, Sanya, which is in the south on Hainan Island, as well as Zhuhai, also in the south of China. Their yachts represented here. They were supposed to be 3 of the stops on this global tour, but that didn't happen because of the pandemic. The man who started all of this, he was the first person to, on his own, circumnavigate the globe back all the way in the late 1960s, Sir Robin Knox Johnston. He set this race up to try and encourage other people to take part in the sport, and I asked him how disappointing it was not to have reached China.
Well, we're hoping so. We're talking to them anyway for the next race. So we've been going to Qingdao now for 17 years. We've got good friends there. And actually I'm so pleased they've at last had a victory, I have to say. But I'm hoping that we're already discussing going back there. And I hope we do, because it is different. We had a fabulous welcome there. And we've made good friends there, and I want to see them again.
And this is a truly international event. The team from China winning, but it's an international crew on board. 60 of them roughly in total, about 20 women, 40 men. And what this will do, I think, this victory for Qingdao, it's the first time they have managed to do this after years of taking part, will really put the city on the map. It's known as China's sailing city, and after years of trying, they've managed to now really bring home a cup and a trophy that's growing in stature in the international sailing arena. Jamie.
Microplastics in the oceans and our food chain is something that CGTN's Juliet Mann has been investigating. In this week's agenda, she'll be asking what we can do to rid the world's seas of 5 trillion pieces of trash. That's the agenda right after the World's Day at 16:30 GMT here on CGTN. And that is the world today. Thank you for watching. We're on smart TV apps, Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire and Android TV, YouTube, Dailymotion, CGTN.com and the CGTN app, and in the UK on Freeview. More news at the top of this hour. Coming up next, it's the agenda. For now, from all of the team in London, it's goodbye.